Alright, hello everybody. Welcome back to another extreme weather video here. Today we're going to be talking about the significant winter storm. Here is the current radar view out of Detroit, and as you see we have heavy snow there. Now let's switch this radar to Fort Wayne, Indiana. As we can see here, oh wait, that's Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas. Whoops, my bad. Here's Fort Wayne, Indiana, and as you can see here again, very heavy snow falling. Now across central Illinois here, I ended up filing a report for winter weather. I filed a report for 11 inches of snow because I got 11 inches of snow. Here is all radar in Oklahoma City, and as you can see here, we have a layer of sleet in orange, freezing rain and pink, rain and gray, rain and green, and then we have a large area of snow there in the blue color. Let's hop on down to Dallas-Fort Worth. We have a strong band of freezing rain with sleet on the north end and snow as well. This will be bringing crippling ice to portions of Arkansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Texas, Indiana, Kentucky, and Tennessee as well. I don't know if I missed another state or not. If I did, whoops, I messed up. If I didn't, oh well. And then let's go to the radar near Abilene, Texas. There's your look near Abilene, Texas. We have snow happening up north of Abilene. We have sleet, freezing rain, and a lot of power outages as well. Now let's switch our view over to Google Chrome now, and now we will be talking about the winter storm over the next few days. We'll also be talking about extreme weather, severe weather, or extreme weather, severe weather outlook. Remember that will be unofficial. And then we'll be talking about the severe weather in the coming days as well. Now quickly, I gotta put some tabs on here because I was not prepared. So sorry in advance. My bad. But alright, here we go. So, here's the current Weather Prediction Center. We currently have an area of heavy snow expected in Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, and Arkansas, with an area of, and another one in Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, PA, and New York. We have the area of freezing rain expected from PA all the way into Texas there. Day 2, we are expecting a layer of heavy snow from Missouri all the way up into the northeast, and freezing rain from Texas all the way up into the northeast as well. Severe weather is also becoming more likely across, I would say, this area as well. We could see a few tornadoes, maybe a stronger one, and damaging wind gusts as well. Here's the Storm Prediction Center. They have kept a 2% tornado risk, 5% wind, and 5% hail. This will go 5 tor and 15 wind by tonight, most likely. Now here is extreme weather's outlooks. Now remember, these are going to be unofficial, and these are go to your local Storm Prediction Center office for official info, but we have a marginal risk for today issued by me, Andrew. We also have a 2% tornado risk along with that, a 5% wind, and a less than 5% hail risk. Here's the discussion if you want to pause and read it. Day 2 outlook. This is made by Ender, me, and Justin. There's a slight risk, and this probably might be expanded a little bit further westward here, a little bit further eastward. It includes a 5% significant risk of tornadoes, 15 wind, and and less than 5 hail. Now, 5% significant tornadoes, you ask, what is that? Well, that's basically a few tornadoes are possible with one that could be strong as well. And there's the discussion. The first part, you can pause it if you want to. Here's the second part of the discussion. You can pause it if you want to, and there's the third part. Now let's go into the weather pattern over the next few days. So here's the current radar view. This is probably what the radar looks like right now. Some snow across eastern Illinois. We have that freezing rain, sleet mix in Oklahoma, Texas there as well. That will transition into heavy snow for a lot of areas, and then heavy freezing rain as we get into the night. We see another area of heavy sleet, heavy freezing rain, and snow into the northeast as well. And then you see the severe weather really ramp up around, looks like 17, 16Z. We start to see convection firing along that surface low. Maybe an isolated severe storm on They're on Friday, but I don't know. Now let's go stop in here and let's go see your snow totals. Total accumulated snowfall. So, Northeast, portions of Maine, you see 24 inches a foot. A couple areas in New York and Vermont get a foot, or 2 feet. The wrap has Oklahoma getting a foot, Arkansas, Missouri, a little bit of Illinois and Indiana getting a foot, Indiana getting a foot, Ohio, PA. So there's going to be a quarter of snow where you get 6 to 12 inches, potentially higher as you get into the Northeast. Freezing rain potential, here you go. So cut all these values in half. These will not be this high, but we have freezing rain from Texas all the way up into the Northeast as well. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to show you the National Weather Service blended models. This is going to be the most realistic solution for freezing rain. So, freezing rain for Texas, 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch is likely. For Arkansas, 1/10 of an inch to 5/10 of an inch is likely. Same with Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, Ohio. Into the Northeast, 1/10 to 1/4 inch is possible as well. Snowfall, anywhere from 8 to 12 inches is possible in Northeast Oklahoma and Eastern Illinois, and in the Southwest Missouri. A foot or more is possible in places like Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, and New York, places like that as well. We will come back to the wrap in a little bit. Once we get through, we'll come back to the wrap right now, as we're gonna be transitioning into the severe weather side. We've been doing a lot of dive-ins with the winter weather recently, so now we're gonna do an in-depth vid about the winter weather. I mean the severe weather. Sorry. So around 8Z tonight, we start to see a warm sector really start to come out. We probably will have a few supercells or like QLCS type structures starting to form at this point. As you can see here, very solid wind profile, but very marginal instability. That is why we have the extreme weather forecasting team has introduced a marginal, given that we have marginal instability with a very strong hodograph there, with strong wind shear as well. That could be sufficient enough for isolated damaging wind gusts in a brief tornado 12Z and before. Once we hit 12Z, we see the moisture start to really get further north, and we see the instability enlargen. As we get to around 16Z, this is when we have strong moisture coming onshore, with the low pressure pretty close to the area here. 0 to 1 kilometer SRH is starting to climb, and then here's your surface instability, that is starting to climb. Here's 18Z, this is probably the peak of the event. We start seeing some pretty nasty soundings out of the area. We see a strong amount of mixed layer cape getting invected further northward, and we have soundings like this where you have a very good hodograph there combined with some strong wind shear as well, with decent mid-level kinematics, which are also uptrending, which will help the event. Lapse rates are solid, not great. Maybe an isolated large hailstone, but mostly we're going to have some very small hail, if anything. Damaging wind gusts will be possible, given that we have D cape right here of 600. And then we have tornadoes possible, given the 3 cape and the shear and the instability overall. So I think the main threats are going to be damaging wind gusts and tornadoes with this event. You can't rule out a isolated hailstone if the area gets like a really like a localized area corridor of like really strong lapse rates there. There's another solid forecast sounding there. Yeah, that's what the wrap has to show. Once we get to around 22:0Z or so, we start to see the instability dwindle as the squall line kind of overrides the warm sector due to it being very small, so the window is kind of small for severe weather. Now, we're going to go reflectivity-wise with the rest of these models, because the rest of these models have a reflectivity look to them. I mean, the wrap does, but it's not that good. So yeah, we're gonna go into it. We're also gonna go into the HRRR here too. We're gonna put that down. We'll put the HRRR. We'll go to the HRRR first. We're gonna do the HRRR first, and we're gonna go sector by sector with the HRRR like we did last time. So let's first start off in Southeast Texas, where we may see a few supercells early tonight. See a couple transient storms form. I don't think these are gonna really produce anything severe. Maybe an isolated damaging wind gust, large hailstone, or some like rotation at some points. We start to see some more transient storms kind of move on shore there. These actually do end up forming and probably producing some large hail or wind gusts at this point. Yeah, most likely some large hail there. So those end up forming and potentially producing severe weather. There's another round forming in right here. This is going to move off to the north and east as well. That probably will produce some stronger severe weather with it. And yeah, it does. We have around 4 a.m. we start to see these erupt and come on shore. And we have a pretty solid environment for tornadoes given this photograph. Decent backed winds there. And we have lapse rates that are not great in the low levels, and then the middle levels are a lot better. There's your instability. Not terrible, especially if you have 1,000 mixed air cape. As you can see here, some of these storms get a bit stronger around 6 a.m. So let's move over to Louisiana now, because that is where your main target area is going to be for the rest of the time. So at this point, we start to see there's more organized supercells and linear segments kind of starting to form. Strong photographs with marginal instability at this point. These start to lift up further northward. We see maybe areas like Lafayette, Alexandria, Lake Charles get severe weather at this point. As we move along here, we start to see another area of some storms forming in the warm sector here. And then this is when we'll probably start to see a more substantial severe risk develop near Slidell, New Orleans, Baton Rouge. Places like that in southern Louisiana here start to see a little bit more of a substantial severe risk really start to get going. Here's a sounding near New Orleans as well. We have solid instability developing, solid thermodynamics overall, especially with your decent instability there. Again, pretty good photographs too. As we get to 18Z, we see this line really start to get going. It's a broken line with embedded supercells, kind of linear type stuff to it. We see here New Orleans. You guys could see some severe weather as well. This is a pretty decent sounding out of New Orleans here. This is more of a linear type sounding. This is also more of a damaging wind type risk with higher decay, but you do see enough SRH and overall shear that you may get an isolated tornado, but that's going to be mainly a damaging wind sounding. As we see here, the line really starts to get going as we get around 1 p.m. Central Daylight Time, and we start to see this main dynamics and lift out of Louisiana. I still can't rule out isolated severe weather there, but the main risk at this point is going to be Mississippi, Alabama, which we will talk about in a second. 4 p.m. we see a raging squall line coming into eastern Louisiana there with the environment slipping out. And probably by 5 p.m. the severe risk is going to be over for Louisiana, if the HRRR is correct. Now let's go over to Mississippi and Alabama. We'll go bang. So we'll watch the evolution of this convection here because this is going to be pretty key for our severe threat. As we see here, this is 11 a.m. and this is 12 p.m. This is when our more substantial severe risk starts to get going in Alabama and Mississippi. Look at this photograph. These are some big time photographs here with SRH of 300 and solid kinematics overall. We have solid thermodynamics overall. This is going to give us a few tornadoes and potentially a stronger one if we can get everything to set up correctly, like the HRRR shows. We end up seeing 2,000 cape as well with the HRRR, which is pretty substantial as well. That is going to be that's going to be like one of the key factors is where is the higher instability going to set up? Is it going to set up with the good kinematics? We don't know. But again, like another really solid sounding across the board here. I'm going to go into this one in depth. We have a very large photograph that is given. We have, I wouldn't say weak instability. I wouldn't say moderate instability. I would say doable instability with a mixed air cape of 1,000 joules per kilogram and lapse rates all in the sixes. We have some pretty dang good wind shear too in the most of the sounding here as well. As we get to 2 p.m., we see this grow upscale a bit more. This is going to be mainly more of a embedded tornado risk at this point. You see here, further north in Alabama, we have huge photographs, but the problem is this is where you have your weak instability at. Now, as we get down to Mobile, Alabama, we see that we have decent instability down here, and the wind shear is pretty good too, so that's going to be a decent threat. Here's Monroeville, Alabama. Another solid sounding there. Well, we'll take a sounding. Let's take one right by Birmingham, just south of there, east of Tuscaloosa. Again, another solid sounding. We see here this gets a little bit more messy as we get into your 4 p.m. range. I mean, we'll take a sounding up by Gadsden there. It'll probably be very contaminated. Yeah, looks like your severe risk is probably going to be eliminated once we get into that time frame in northern Alabama, central Alabama there. Eastern Alabama, still some solid soundings here. Let's look at this sounding here. So this is in front of the line. We see marginal thermodynamics here. We have a solid hodograph. So we get solid hodographs across the board, but at this point, you start to see a little bit less instability in most spots. I would say at this point, your highest severe risk would be anywhere from Columbus, Montgomery, southward. Kind of this area here would be the area to watch. As later as like 1:12, 2 p.m. is going to be more of like that Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Meridian area to watch out for. As we get into this area, we see another round of supercells form out ahead of the main convective line. Decent hodographs, but you have lacking thermodynamics at this point, so I think your tornado risk would be starting to get over. We see this line of storm strengthen a little bit as it comes into Columbus here. We'll take a sounding in Columbus, and this will support really not a severe risk at all. Maybe some heavy winds, maybe some nearing severe wind gusts. This will give you an isolated severe wind gust potentially. Dothan, Alabama, we'll take a sounding just northwest of Dothan. As we can see here, again, another large hodograph, but very, 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 very weak thermodynamics. So main threats would be damaging wind gusts at this point. And this squall line is probably about to become elevated as well and get undercut by the front at this point. And then as you can see here, I don't think you're going to see a severe risk past probably 10 p.m. with this setup. Unless we see this squall line like the HRR reflectivity shows, but I don't think so. Now let's go into the ARW model. So, let's do it. We're going to take a look at the southeast United States. All these are going to take a look at the southeast United States. So here is the ARW model. Let's just take a look at it. This is today. We see a couple supercells form in the Gulf. This is around 9:10 Z. We see a few supercells trying to form in southern Louisiana there. Looking at that, this would definitely do for an isolated tornado and isolated damaging wind gusts. As we move along here, we see these storms strengthen a little bit as we get to 12 Z off the ARW model. The instability is still very crappy though. As we get to 13 Z, we see a storm move onshore from the Gulf in Alabama. And this will not do much when it hits shore. At this point, we are starting to get the initial stage for initiation to really get going, and bang, we have initiation around 21Z. Forecast soundings show very large hodographs, but more marginal instability values. Again, pretty solid hodographs. I would still think this is a 5% tornado risk environment. It's just thermals are a little bit weaker off the ARW model than the HRR has. Let's see, maybe places like South Mississippi have good thermodynamics. Yeah, those are solid. As we can see here, the supercell looks like it crosses the warm front and dies off the ARW model. And you can see here, ARW just has a problem with the thermodynamics being pretty weak overall. I mean, at this point, we probably see a decent storm revolve there. Not much to deal with. What about south side? Is there anything really big down here instability-wise? No. So the ARW is one of the models that shows a little bit less instability, so that's something to watch out for. I see that squall line kind of move in. Maybe an isolated, like, stronger storm as we get into the early morning hours here. Probably not, though. I'll just take a couple soundings and see. Yeah, no, it's not enough instability. Alright, here's the Nssl model. This model does not show any severe weather happening in the early morning hours. It has a pretty clear warm sector as well, with convective initiation firing off at 20Z in Mississippi along the cold front. And we see here it has a little bit smaller hodographs than what I would think, but it's definitely a possibility that we see things like the Nssl happen. As we get to 21Z, we see the line really start getting going, and it's probably because it's a little bit more linear because the hodographs are not too great. We see one of the storms within the line get embedded and start to really go nuts with the environment based off reflectivity there. We see this sounding here is not too bad. We have a not great wind profile based off of the Nssl with some good thermodynamics though. So basically what the Nssl favors is a couple brief tornadoes and more of a damaging wind threat. We see a couple isolated storms fire off and then they just die. Here is the here's the FE3. It is one of those models that supports that early morning severe weather risk, so that's like 4 out of the 5, and bang, there you go. That'll definitely support your early morning severe thunderstorm risk there. We see here the storms kind of start to really get going there off the FV3, and we start to see the instability get a little bit higher. Now, note the FV3 has a track record of running way too cold with severe weather events, so just note that. Pretty solid kinematics here with this sounding. They're not the best. They're not the worst. Once we get to around 19Z, we start to see multiple areas of thunderstorms really start to get going. Note we're probably going to have higher thermodynamics than this. It'll probably be more like the forecasted thermodynamics right here, probably more like 1,014 joules per kilogram. Wow, what is my pen doing? Let me just do that. Okay. But as we see here, we get later into the day here, and we see the line really start getting going up by Birmingham as well, with a couple embedded storms. You're gonna have more instability than what that shows in Birmingham. Again. We start to see some pretty solid photographs again coming out of the area. And you can see here this line really starts to get its juice going, and then it weakens as it gets into the night. And we see no severe weather on the next day. Maybe a few isolated thunderstorms, but that's about it. Here are your updraft helicity swaths off the FV3. We see you can definitely point out the areas of more linear stuff would be up here. The more embedded supercellular stuff would be down here as well. So we definitely see the FV3. Here's the HRRR. We'll go to the 18Z run with it because that's the updated run. This is the updated HRRR run with it. We see a couple supercell tracks in here, a couple in here as well. Now let's go to the Nssl. We see it has one like singular track with multiple like embedded tracks there. So the Nssl one's probably like one embedded supercell to go nuts, and then it has like multiple other tracks that are weaker, and same with the ARW. It has a couple that are more strong, but mainly weaker tracks. Now to close this out, we're going to be looking at the overall next couple weeks or so with the Euro. So there's your winter storm off the Euro and severe weather event that pushes off the coast. We see a clipper system come down from Canada, bring some light snow to places like Wisconsin, Michigan, North Dakota, South Dakota. And then we see another system trying to brew up in the Gulf there, giving some thunderstorms to Florida, and really not much else, except maybe another clipper system later on. So, that will wrap it up. This is the wrap up of the winter weather and severe weather forecast. Now let's do some another question answer type thing. So, a question that maybe some people will ask is, will there be blizzard warnings issued in some spots? Most likely not, but it is a possibility if the winds get strong enough, which we've had blizzard conditions in places like Illinois today. Another question. How significant will the severe weather be, and will it be upgraded to a slight? It will likely be upgraded to a slight, and the severe weather is a moderately significant event. It's not like anything that you should be really scared of, but it's something that you should monitor, and there's low-end potential for a strong tornado with it. Another question some people ask is going to be, what are the main threats going to be? Well, the main threats are going to be a few tornadoes, isolated scatter damaging wind gusts, and small hail with the severe weather threat. Now, with the flooding rains, I did not go into this, but some people might ask, how much rain is possible across the Tennessee River Valley? Well, looks like anywhere from 1.5 inches to a little bit over 3 inches is possible. Some other people might ask, how significant could the ice accumulations be in the Dallas-Fort Worth area? Or maybe across the board? And will there be ice storm warnings for Dallas-Fort Worth? And the answer is no, because you have to have around half-inch of ice or greater for there to be ice storm warnings in most spots. And we see ice storm warnings in here because there's confidence of very significant icing forming. Another question is, how significant will the snow be for places? Well, places like Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Oklahoma, maybe northwest Arkansas, Kansas, Missouri, maybe a little bit of like northwest Texas there, Ohio, PA, New York, and the Northeast. They're going to be dealing with a pretty significant amount of snow, 6 to 12 plus inches in some spots, and also given the strong wind gusts, it's going to be blowing and drifting a lot. Now that will do it. If you have questions, you can put them in the comments and we will answer them.